What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and it seems that the lore for Branded is not over just yet. Yes, I'm a little late talking about this because it's like 2 weeks old, but the Byssteed is how we're pronouncing this one with the weird spelling, but I think that may be more translation than anything. I'd be shocked if it stayed that way when we got it. Archetype was announced, and it's mostly Chaos, Light and Dark Dragons that play into the Branded lore, and of course we did get a couple of other Branded cards that go with this directly, so we're going to summarize them all in one video. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel and checking out the video. As always, I super appreciate it. Before we get into the content and conversation, I am just going to ask, if you do enjoy the content, please hit the like button and subscribe. And of course, if you want to click that bell icon to notify yourself, feel free to do that as well. So the Byssteed archetype is going to be in Darkwing Blast, and as far as I've seen, they are all light and dark dragons. I read over them kind of quickly, but I didn't really take a whole lot of time to break down and process the effects, so that's what we're going to do here. But before we actually jump into the meat and potatoes of this, I got to talk about this card first, and it ties in because it's branded and all of that, and it's another form of Ecclesia. This is called Red Cartesia the Virtuous. It is a level 4 light spellcaster that says as follows. If Fallen of Albaz is on your field or in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. During the main phase, quick effect, you can fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. During the end phase, if a fusion monster is sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from the graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So just when we thought Ecclesia couldn't get any more nuts upgrades after how good the Virtuous Dogmatica Ecclesia, what was it, Incredible Ecclesia, I think it was called, from Burst of Destiny was, they might have one-upped it again. This is just generically really strong, being a quick effect fusion that can trigger during either player's turn. When you think about archetypes like Tier Elements that aren't even out here yet, and then of course decks like Despia and the Albaz fusions themselves that have reactive effects, it really opens a whole lot of doors for you, and it just has so much good typing going for it, being a spellcaster tuner, and of course it's self-reviving and a free extender. This is a genuinely really good card. I fully expect it to be bumped to Secret Rare when it comes out, as the other, Ecclesia was. One was Ultra, I believe, originally, and then the Burst of Destiny one was Secret. This may be the best one, if not on par with Incredible Ecclesia, so keep an eye out for that. And I gotta give a shout out to the artwork, which is just really well done, has a really cool vibe to it, and I appreciate the way that they seem to keep just topping themselves with these branded cards. So, Red Cartesia is not directly part of the Byssteed archetype. It was revealed a few days later, but it's really good and probably the best card we're going to talk about in this video, so I wanted to get that out there first before we jump into the main sort of archetype of this video. Now, with the Byssteeds, as I said, they are all dragons, and they have light and dark attributes that vary. So let's take a look at them, starting with Byssteed Magnamut, which is a level 6 dark dragon that says you can target one light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish it, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. This is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. If this card is special summoned, you can activate this effect, add one dragon monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand during the end phase of this turn, except Byssteed Magnamut. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So what a whole lot of things going on in a card. First of all, it's a free summon that can banish from your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard to bring itself out. That's really good against decks like Despia and other things that are graveyard reliant, especially because that banish is not a card effect. So, oh no, the banish is a card effect, but still, and this is why we do. So this is really good against all kinds of decks, especially those that are graveyard reliant, and we know light and dark monsters are played more than any others, so it's absolutely going to see play just from that respect alone. But the fact that it's a quick effect to special summon itself is kind of insane. You can use this as a DD Crow-esque card to disrupt the opponent, but specialing it during the opponent's turn also allows you to add a dragon from your deck or graveyard to your hand during the end phase, so if it's going to your turn, you special this during theirs, you get your search, and you're set to go on your turn. And in some cases, this can even be live before you even go. If you're going second and your opponent's milling stuff or playing some kind of fusion deck, there's a lot of application for this outside of Byssteed as a whole. It is a generically really cool card with some of the best typing in the game and will absolutely see some play. Next up, we've got Byssteed Sarinir, which is a level 6 Dark Dragon that says you can target one light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish it, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. This is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. Now, all of the Byssteed main deck monsters have this effect, so I will not waste everyone's time going through it with each card, but it's, again, just important to note that this quick effect application is really neat because it's not limiting you to being able to play it, but it is giving you an incentive to play it sooner, and also, you know, it's not forcing you to rely on your opponent. It just, if your opponent happens to make these plays, you can go off a bit easier. If this card is sent to the graveyard at all, you can send one Byssteed monster, except Byssteed Sarinir, or one branded spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. So, milling your Byssteeds is neat, especially because it does set you up for other Byssteeds, but being able to mill any branded spell or trap is obviously really cool as well. Many of the branded spell or traps can add themselves back to the hand from the graveyard, either with their own effects or with the effects of certain cards like Despia, and that's just a really neat interaction to have that kind of brings these themes together, while also showing you how these can clearly work in some kind of Chaos Dragon-esque build. So there's a lot on the surface to kind of look at, but this is just a really solid overall card. Not quite as good as the one that searches any dragon, but definitely good for setup and extension. Byssteed Druid Worm is a level 6 Dark Dragon with the same first effect, but this one says, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one opponent's special summon monster, send it to the graveyard. That is non-destroying removal. It obviously does target, and it does limit itself to special summon monsters, but that's more Yu-Gi-Oh than anything else nowadays. There's always going to be a bunch of special summon monsters on the board, so it's not like that's a hard thing to pull off. This being removal that you can utilize after you link away with it, or synchro, or do whatever the hell you want to do with it, playing some kind of dragon variant, is just another really good piece of removal. Obviously, it can be negated, but in some cases, you can actually use this to bait or force the opponent to negate, because this is an additional trigger that activates after you've sent it to grave, meaning if you link it away or synchro it away, you're still going to get the effect of that synchro or link monster you brought out, and you might even be able to chain block in some capacity to really make the opponent decide what moves they want to make and how they want to respond to stuff. Just a note, too, the artwork on these are absolutely awesome. I'm a big fan of just, like, the dragons in general with Yu-Gi-Oh! With Chaos Dragons and stuff. They've always had some really cool art, but these are especially neat, and it makes sense because they tie into branded, and that seems to be where most of their effort has gone lately. Now, the Byssteed Lobellion is a level 8 light dragon monster that is clearly different from the others we've seen so far, and looks like something out of Dragon Ball Z, maybe? Like, I'm thinking like Dragon Ball GT, like Nova vibes here. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by tributing one level 6 or higher dark dragon. You can only special summon this card once per turn this way. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, add one Byssteed monster from your deck to your hand, except the Byssteed Lobellion. During your main phase, you can place one branded continuous spell or trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. Both of these effects are extremely powerful. Being able to discard it to search a Byssteed monster means you're immediately setting yourself up to be able to revive it later, because you just need to tribute a dragon and it can be special from hand or grave. So you open up a lot of different play opportunities, but you're also getting a light or dark engrave to go off with your Byssteeds that you search if maybe that's more important at that time. Of course, during the main phase, being able to get any branded continuous spell or trap can get you cards like Branded Lost, or even Despia Theater of the Branded, which is a good fusion spell, and depending on different hybrid builds, could absolutely be worth a look. The special summon restriction is not really going to be that big of a deal here, and they did wisely put a hard once per turn on the special summon, because it could be pretty easily abusable, in the sense that it would not only allow you to trigger some of your Byssteed effects, but it would also be able to keep reviving. It's a pretty cool boss monster that does have a lot going for it. It may not see play in every engine, but it's not exactly hard to pull out, and it does do a lot for the Byssteed archetype as a whole. The Byssteed Alba is a level 12 light dragon monster that says cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by attributing 2 Byssteed monsters. While you control this card, summon this way, negate the effects of all Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link monsters on the field. If this face-up card leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, banish face down all cards in each player's, banish all face-down cards in each player's extra deck face up until your opponent's end phase. So this feels like a win more card in some ways, but it also feels like an extremely easy card to get on the board, and when you do, you shut off the entirety of extra deck. So nothing, including Rituals for that matter, which isn't extra deck, but still an added incentive against decks like Drytron, you're shutting off all of them, and if the opponent does try to get over it through other means, they're going to lose their entire extra deck, at least for the turn. So this can be super powerful, at least on paper. I haven't been able to playtest this, nor watch any videos showing it in action, so I don't know whether or not it looks looks better on paper than it is in practice, but this looks like a really easy condition to fulfill that can also special itself from grave and does a whole lot of floodgating for very minimal investment. I would keep an eye on this card. I definitely think it's going to be something that people will want to make work. Whether or not it will, we'll have to wait and see. Rebranded is a continuous spell that says if a light and or dark monster, more monsters, is banished, you can target one of them, place it on the bottom of the deck, and if you do, draw one card. You can only use this effect once per turn. Once per turn, when your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you can target one Byssteed monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effect of Rebranded once per chain. So, it does give you the ability to, well, it synergizes extremely well with the Byssteed cards on the surface, because if you banish to summon, you put one back, you draw a card, you're basically replacing it in your hand, but that is a hard once per turn, and with good reason. The second effect is not, and being able to revive your Byssteed monsters pretty much more than once if the opponent keeps going off is definitely a cute application, and this is searchable from the deck by multiple of the new Byssteed cards, including the new boss monster, which can essentially just set it straight from the deck. But let's not forget, it is a branded card, so it's also searchable by all the existing branded support, and definitely something you want to think about in different builds. Like, obviously, Byssteed would play it, but in hybrid decks that are still playing branded cards, this may be a good standalone card because it doesn't really require Byssteed to be that pseudo draw engine that allows you to maybe get back some of your resources and get monsters back in the deck that you might want to use later. Branded Beast is a continuous trap that says once per turn during the main phase, if you control a Byssteed monster, you contribute one dragon monster, then target one card your opponent controls, destroy it. During the end phase, you can target one branded continuous spell or trap in your graveyard, place it face up on your field. You can only use this effect once per turn. So, of course, right off the bat, you can use this with Rebranded, which is great. This once per turn, you tribute a dragon, you target a card your opponent controls, and you pop it. And as we know, many of the new Byssteed cards straight up trigger when they're sent to grave, meaning you could technically remove multiple problems in one go. But let's not pretend some of the older dragons don't do things when sent to grave as well. Cards like Starliege Safer want to hit the graveyard. Other dragon monsters want to hit the graveyard as well, and the only requirement is that you control a Byssteed, so you don't have to tribute the Byssteed monster, although it does seem like in most cases you might want to do that. This is pretty good. Of course, it is a trap, so it's going to be inherently slower, and I know a lot of the branded Despia builds have elected to go in a different direction and are not very trap heavy, but you definitely want to at least consider it as a possibility because it is solid spot removal that allows you to resource recover from the grave. And that brings us back to the beginning, so that's going to recap this sort of core portion of the video. And let's take a look at a couple cards that sort of support this indirectly, just the first few things that came to my mind when we look at a few of the support options. So Chaos Space is really one of the first big ones that came to my mind, especially now because it does work, at least with the new level 8 boss monster. You can't search to level 12, and with good reason, but discarding a light or dark, searching a different light or dark, and of course being able to banish and put your monsters back in the deck and get draw power. Really, it's a card that's always been good and has been hugely potent in Dragon Link and just gets better here. You obviously don't have to search a Byssteed off of it, but you have the ability to discard your Byssteed and kind of work them in or combo them in with other stuff. There's no reason not to look at Chaos Space as a great option in this deck. Chaos Valkyria, as well as a card that people have looked at, a few times. It's been sort of on the outside looking in terms of competitive play, but it is another really good card that, directly, when it's banished, you can send a light or dark monster from your deck to the graveyard, and you can't activate cards or the effects of cards with that name, so there are some restrictions there, but depending on when you're banishing it, because this is a quick effect, the Byssteeds are a quick effect, you can technically banish this during the opponent's turn, summon a Byssteed, mill something, and then you can activate or reap the rewards of that as your turn comes around. There's definitely a lot of ways to manipulate that, and I do think Chaos Valkyria might synergize well with this. At the very least, you can kind of look at it and see where the combos kind of come together, but we know there's a lot of good Chaos cards, and not everything is going to be able to be played. And Branded in White is just another one I thought of. Fusion Summon a Fusion Monster from your extra deck. This has dipped in and out of favor with some branded decks, but has generally been lesser played, but it is a Miracle Fusion if you're using Fallen of Albaz's material, which means you can banish your stuff, you can trigger other things, you can put stuff back with cards like Rebranded, and of course this can reset it back if it's used for Fallen of Albaz. It's not the best card ever, but it is searchable and does sort of directly play into what you're looking to do. So I would say, again, just sort of keep an eye on it and keep an open mind as you think about possible supports, and I'm sure there are plenty more that we have not touched on that people will get as they theory craft. So that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I definitely think the Byssteeds are really cool. I like them a lot. I think they have a ton of potential as a meta archetype. And I know some people are kind of tired of the whole branded lore, but I think they want to wrap some stuff up. And as long as they keep diversifying it a little bit, so it's not just like 100 of the same support, like the Byssteed are very clearly different. And you could argue whether or not Dragon Link needs the extra support, but there's no arguing that these cards are not good. Like, these are very good cards. Like, there's no arguing that, and whether or not they will see play, we'll have to wait and see. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the Byssteed down in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.